Greetings, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We do a couple of webinars a month. Some of them are overviews of ClubExpress, some of them are new features, some of them are deep dives into particular modules, whether it be documents or managing custom pages and such. And today is a little bit different. It's going to be a webinar about the kinds of tools that membership directors use. So it's going to span more than just say one module. Before we go into the webinar, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. All the phones and microphones are muted, so questions should be entered into the chat window. And at the end of Samantha's demonstration, we will revisit the chat window to see if there's any questions that were not answered during the demonstration. And this is particularly useful for people that are viewing this session as a recording. And all of our webinars and tutorials are recorded. And you can get to the schedule of the webinar and the actual recordings by going to clubexpress.com and clicking on the Cool Stuff link at the top of the page. Then click on the Webinars tab, and you'll see the upcoming webinar schedule, and you'll see a list of recent webinars. Similarly, on the tab above the Webinars tab is the video tutorials. And one of the reasons I want to show you this is that there are several recent tutorials that were either created new or updated because of changes and feature enhancements and things like that that were implemented in version 10. So if you haven't already seen these tutorials, these are very worthwhile. You'll hear my voice a lot in them, but managing the homepage, custom pages, managing people and such, because we've now combined the member manager and the non-member manager into one tool that Samantha is going to be talking about a bit. And all of our tutorials and webinar recordings are on YouTube. So you can go to YouTube, click on the subscribe button, and even the notify bell so that you'll be notified anytime there's new content. And one last thing, if you're using ClubExpress, and particularly if ClubExpress is working very well with your organization, we'd appreciate it if you go to clubexpress.com/reviews, click on one of these review sites, leave a review so other people that are evaluating association management solutions can have the benefit of your experience using ClubExpress with your organization. So today, Samantha is going to be talking about the tools that are available and the procedures that are available to membership directors.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for taking the time to join us today. I'm really excited about today's webinar. It is for membership directors. So today's webinar is going to be a little bit different than our typical webinars where we hyper-focus on a module or an enhancement. Today's webinar is going to cover a big picture overview of what you should be doing as a membership director, what items you're going to be touching as part of your job, and how what you do affects other officer roles within your organization. So how does it affect someone who creates events? How does it affect someone who is sending out all of your communication to your organizations? So that's what today's goal is, to give you a big picture overview of how everything in ClubExpress is connected to what you do as a membership director. So we're going to talk about all of your databases, your member, your non-member databases. We've talked about the People Manager before. We had a webinar on that a couple of weeks ago that goes into using the People Manager in a great amount of detail. We're also going to talk about managing your member types and everything that goes into that, creating those member types, setting up renewal options, where you do that, and a lot of options that you can set up in people options. So what type of data you're collecting from your members, secondary members, tertiary members. And then we'll also talk about what it means to be a member. So in today's demonstration, we're going to go through the People Manager. We won't go through it in as much detail as we have gone through in the past because this is an overview. It's a big picture webinar. We'll also talk about member types, renewal settings, people options, and then we'll talk about how your member types that you set up as a membership director are connected to the other modules on your site that maybe you as a membership director don't handle. And then what does it mean to be a member? So once someone signs up, they're officially an active member of your organization, what does that actually mean for them and for you? So I'm signed in to the Northwest Balloon Club as Martin Smith. Martin Smith is an administrator, which means that he has access to everything on the back end of the control panel. Because he's signed in, he has the control panel link, which for you would appear at the very top, either on the left or the right-hand side. And when I'm in the control panel, the first stop that I'm going to make is the People Manager. Now, the People Manager is where you as a membership director would likely be spending a very large chunk of your time. It's where all of your member and non-member databases are going to sit. It's searchable. It allows you to take a look at membership status to see if people have paid. It's where you go when you have memberships that need approval, when you have prospective members who've signed up that you actually need to approve for them to become an active member. So let's dive in. Right off the bat, you see that your People Manager has a search function. Previously, with our Member Manager, you could only search by members and you had to go to your non-member database in order to search for non-members. Now, if you aren't already familiar with it, our People Manager allows you to search through both databases all in one place, but you can still separate your search out. So by default, when you visit the People Manager, you're looking at active and expired as a member status. And if I hit search, that's what my search brings up. Now, of course, we've gone through what all of these columns mean, what all of those icons on the right-hand side in the maintain column mean. We're going to talk about a couple of specific things that come up quite a bit. The first is, what do I do if I have memberships that require approval? Well, the way that memberships actually happen, if you have a membership that requires approval, is a member signs up the same way that anyone signs up with your organization. There's a join link. They go through the entire membership sign up wizard, which we'll go through, and they get a notification at the very end of that that says that their application has been submitted for review. And it's up to either you as a membership director or a membership committee, perhaps, to review that person's application and decide whether or not they get to become a member of your organization. So let's talk about that first step. Now, when a member signs up and their application is in an approval process, their status is prospective. You can see under the membership column that right now we only see those active and expired statuses. And you can also see that those statuses are actually links, because the status can be changed manually by you as an administrator. Now, when you're looking at an active member, you have a couple of options to freeze, drop, or expire the membership. But what we're going to talk about today is what you do when you need to approve a member. So if I take a look at member status, what I'm really looking for is anyone who has signed up that is now listed as a prospective member. And so I'll search for that. And we have quite a few people who have signed up with the Northwest Balloon Club who are waiting for their membership applications to go through. And I can see that that prospective link, again, it's a link. It's something that I can click and actually decide what I want to do with that particular member. So now this particular member is a secondary member, which we'll come back to. If I'm taking a look at an individual member, someone who has just signed up by themselves, and I click that prospective link, I have a couple of options here. I can approve that particular membership. If I approve it, what happens from that point depends on whether or not you have a fee associated with your member type. If I approve Fred's membership and there's a fee associated with my member type, he then is prompted to pay whatever membership due there is, $20, $100, whatever that might be. What'll happen is he'll get an email stating that he now has to pay that amount, and his status will change to pending as opposed to active, because until he pays that membership due, he's not considered an active member of your organization. Once he pays that due, or alternatively, once you as an administrator or a treasurer applies a payment that he may have sent in, his membership becomes active. You also have the option to flat out decline the membership. If you decline the membership, that prospective member gets a notification that their membership has been declined. You also have the option to drop the membership. Now, if you have maybe someone who has come to you and said that maybe they signed up on accident, or they've signed up and they've changed their mind, or maybe you have reached out to them because their application is missing some information and they just haven't gotten back to you, and it's been several months, you can drop that particular member so that they don't list in your database and they're not dirtying up that list of members that you have. Anytime you elect to drop a member, whether they're active, prospective, expired, you have to give a reason. And we've covered pretty much every reason that you can think of why you might want the member to actually be dropped from your database. And if you choose to drop them, you decide what happens with every piece of data that's associated with their particular record. And the last option that you have for prospective members is to convert them to a non-member. So maybe in that same instance, you have someone who signed up to be a member, but they're maybe waffling on maybe how much the membership costs. They're not quite sure if it's for them just yet. And you want to convert them to a non-member because you want them to still sit in your non-member database. Maybe you still want to send them communications. Maybe you still want them included on your monthly newsletter. So you can convert them to a non-member. That way you can still keep them as a contact. And a bonus is that, of course, you can convert that non-member back into a member should Fred decide that he wants to be a full paying member. So let's go through. We'll approve Fred's membership. And so now Fred has been removed from this particular list because he's no longer a prospective member. So let's go ahead and find Fred. His last name started with blog. Let's go ahead and search for that. So now we see that Fred is a pending member because there is that fee associated with his membership. And on the right-hand side here, we can see that there's that $sign again that denotes that Fred owes the club some money of some sort. Once Fred actually pays for his membership, he turns into a full active member. So let's go in and apply that payment for Fred. Let's say that Fred sent us in a check. He was kind enough to do so. He signed up for our organization. I'm going to say that Fred received a check. Of course, maybe this doesn't fall under you as a membership director. Maybe this falls under your treasurer. I'm going to note that Fred paid with a check, record his check payment. And now I can see that Fred Blogs has changed into an active member. So from this point, what does that mean? That means that now when Fred logs into your website, he has access to the member menu. So let's talk about that. At the very top here, we can see that we see one specific menu. It's the member menu. But if I log out, the menu might look a little bit different. So let me log out of the Northwest Balloon Club. So I see a completely different menu as someone from the general public. So the first thing that it means to be a member is that you have access to things that a non-member doesn't. That could be modules, it could be forums, it could be really just anything that you've placed on your member menu. So let me log back in as Martin. And again, we can see that we have a different menu here. So let's talk about a couple of the other things that as a membership director, you might be touching. You'll probably spend a little bit of time at the very bottom of the People tab in the Setup section, setting up your member types, setting up your renewal and expiration settings, setting up your people options, and really touching everything that goes into your membership sign-up wizard. One thing that we have available on our help system is a complete how-to guide that goes through the step-by-step process of everything that goes into your membership sign-up wizard. So I'm quickly going to point out where that guide sits. It's a new option on our menu in the help system. So if we take a quick look at how to define memberships and the sign-up wizard, you see that in the list of everything that we offer is touching all of the items that go through your membership sign-up wizard. When someone signs up, they're selecting a member type, they're potentially answering questions that you've asked them using additional member data. They're potentially adding additional charges. Maybe if you offer new members signing up a keychain or a mug, or you ask them to make a donation, you can add those as well. If you ask your members to attach things to their membership, that's something that you configure as a membership director, getting that ball rolling, getting that sign up wizard going. And then a couple of the other things, you take a look at people options to decide what information do I even want to collect from people. And then finally, you configure that sign up wizard. You decide what people are going to see, what people are going to answer when they sign up with your organization. So if you haven't already, take a second to go through the how-to guide on defining memberships and the membership sign-up wizard. It includes not just step-by-step instructions, but pro tips, good to know tips, cautionary tips, some things that you may not think of when you're creating a setting a certain way. So what I'm going to do is briefly cover some of the options that we have within member types. Now, remember that you can have as many member types as you need. There are a lot of reasons why you might, for example, have free memberships that last for 300 months, as you can see at the very top here. Now, this is a demo club, so we have a lot more member types than you would normally have as a club, but you have a lot of options here. An honorary life member, for example, you can push that membership duration out and make the membership cost $0. You can create levels of memberships. You can create a gold level membership, which maybe gives that member access to all of the functions of your site. And maybe a silver level membership would only give them access to a few of the functions on your site. Because also remember that with every member type, you can set a specific menu to go with that member type. So let's say that you consider forums a really big sell for your organization and you only give forums to your gold level members. All you have to do is create a separate menu for your gold level members that actually includes forums. And bam, you have a completely different way of setting up your member types. Now, if we go back into the control panel, couple of other things that you would touch that are major items would be your renewal and expiration settings. So if you're not already familiar, ClubExpress can allow you to do either rolling renewals or single date renewals. And within each of those options, you basically configure everything that you could think of as far as renewals. So for example, if everyone renews on the same date, you select the date, whether or not you have that grace period, if someone joins before that period starts. And if you want to enforce continuous membership, meaning if a member misses a period of membership, whether that's a year or 6 months, if they have to pay for that in order to keep themselves active within your organization. You configure your renewal notices. One thing that a lot of people miss is that if you send 3 renewal notices to your members, the last one can be sent after the membership's already expired by making that last date a negative number. So right now at the Northwest Balloon Club, 5 days after the membership expires, that member still gets that last chance notice. Of course, they can continue to sign in 6 months from now and still be faced with renewing their expired membership. So you have a lot of options that, again, are going to affect what it means to be a member within your organization and what type of access that member has to things. And if we go back into the control panel and take a look at our people options, this is where you decide what data you're collecting from your members and how your members actually join your organization. So one of the first options is that members join through either their personal lives or their business or professional lives. We also offer, as a member type, business memberships now. We have an entire webinar that we covered business memberships in. And for organizations like chambers of commerce or professional organizations, adding a business membership could completely change the way some of your memberships are organized. It could completely change the way people sign up for a membership with your organization than it did before. So we talked a little bit about membership approval at the very start of this webinar. It's one of the biggest questions that we get. It's something that a lot of people tend to miss. Where do I go for those types of things? If you're even wondering, how do I require approval for membership, even from the get-go? Well, you can answer that approval is required by the board of directors right off the bat in your membership options. Now, this option is a default the way any other ClubExpress default exists. When you're creating defaults within a lot of modules within ClubExpress, they're more of a frequently used option than they would be a default, because you can still change it on a case-by-case basis. So for example, if for the most part, most of your memberships require approval, you might want to say that yes, they all do. And when you're creating those individual member types, they'll already be set to require approval. And for the couple that maybe don't require approval, maybe for example, a trial membership, you can select no for that individual membership. And there's a whole host of items that you might want to really think about as to whether or not you actually need that information. For example, do you need birthdays? Even for secondary and tertiary members, what type of information do you want to collect from them? For example, I had training with an organization that used ClubExpress for their grade school website. And the parents were the members of their organization, the parents of the children that went to that school. They use the website to talk about school events and things like that. They host events that the parents, the members, can bring their children to. And while we were going through training, they were asking, how do parents actually sign up their children when they're signing up for this event? And it never occurred to them, why not just add the children as tertiary members to the membership? And they thought that it was great. So when you are thinking about, the member types, remember the levels of membership that you add and what that means as far as what it means to be a member in your organization. Primary members are the ones who essentially manage the membership. It's the primary member. They have their own login. They can move around your website as an active member. Secondary members get the same thing. They're not the primary member of the membership. They're not the one managing the membership. However, they still have access to your website as an active member of your organization. You may not choose to collect as much information from your secondary members as your members. And even with tertiary members, you might choose to collect even less. So in my previous example, where I was talking about potentially adding children or minors as tertiary members, they opted to just collect basic information, did not capture an email address, didn't capture a birthday. They wanted to just keep the amount of information as minimal as possible to make the parents a little bit more comfortable with signing their children up on an online website. But tertiary members don't just have to be children. If you are hosting business memberships, perhaps the tertiary members are the senior executives of that particular organization or company, the people who don't necessarily need to interact with your website every day, but want to be kept in the loop on communications that you might send out. Now, at the very bottom, you have some miscellaneous options. One of the things that comes up a lot is, as a membership director, how do I get notified when someone signs up, especially if you need to go in and approve those memberships? Or maybe you send a more heartfelt email welcoming that particular member, in addition to the email that ClubExpress sends out, which is a system email. Under miscellaneous options, you have the option to notify the membership director either never, or for new memberships only, or when you have a new membership or a renewal. Now, it's important to note that if you have not defined a membership director within the system, we have no idea who to send that email to. And that's a step that a lot of people tend to miss. So let's take a look in the control panel at where you actually tell your website, this person is my membership director. This is who you send the notification to. So under our club tab, and for you, the club tab might be something a little bit different. It could be a society tab. It could be an association tab. It's going to be the fourth tab from the left. It's going to include all of your club or association information. And at the very bottom in the setup section, it's where you configure your titles. Now, the way that I typically explain this to people is that configuring the title is really just half of the step. Configuring a title is like placing a place setting at a dinner table. I still don't know who's sitting there yet, but I know that I have a space for them. So under our titles, we have a membership director already set up. If I were to add a title from scratch, let's say you haven't set up your membership director, and I select add title, I simply type in that this particular person is the membership director. And if you have an association or club email address that is specific to that particular title, enter in the email address. And I'll come back to that in a moment. And then, of course, you note what the person holding that title serves as within your organization. And of course, you'd select membership director. Now, the way that appears here is that I have my title membership director. If I check this column noting here, I can see that the service is for membership director, and I've inserted an email address. Now, typically, the email address would be something like member director at Northwest Balloon Club. Now, that particular email address doesn't actually exist, but we'll save it anyway. Now, the reason that you wouldn't insert a personal email address into that title field is because it's just not necessary. If you think about it, your membership director is either getting all of their communication through an email that is associated with your organization, or they have everything sent to their personal email address. So let's talk about that. In the case that you have one email address that is associated with the title or the position, not the person, meaning that every time you get a new membership director, the email address never changes. It's with the title. You would insert that email address with the title. Now let's talk about how we tell the system that a certain person is our membership director. For that, we're going to go back into the control panel. At the very top under contact, it might be contact us if that's how you've named it on your particular site. And here's where we say we have all of these titles. Who sits in that title? Right here, we've stated that Martin Smith is our membership director. And the way that we do that is if we add a contact, we select the member and then choose one of the titles that we have configured on the title screen. Then we have the option to either show them on the contacts page. You don't necessarily have to do that. What information you'd like to show and what email address you should be using. Again, if the email address that you should be using is that title email address, make sure to select that. If you're using the member's personal email address and you select member's email, it's going to use whatever email address they've inserted into their member profile. That could be their Gmail, their Yahoo. It could be a work email address. It could be really anything. So in this case, we'll keep it as the title. So now our system knows that not only do we have a membership director, but it knows who that membership director is. And Martin Smith is now going to get all of those communications. He's going to get notified every time someone signs up with the organization or someone renews.
Samantha, if you could just go back to that page for a minute. We have a question that was relevant to that page.
Yes.
The question is, can you change the name of the title, like webmaster? So if you click on edit for that webmaster title.
So you can, changing the names actually happens in titles to change the name of the title.
Right.
And so, sure, you can change it even after you've configured it. So let's take a look at our webmaster title. We could change this to Web Wizard and save those changes. So now it happens instantaneously. So it's called Web Wizard here. But
it is still acknowledged as the webmaster because that was the checkbox on that.
Yes,
on that title.
So changing the title doesn't necessarily change the distinction of what that title serves as. And you don't always have to associate a title with an actual role. So you see here that we have a title called intern. They're not associated with a specific defined role that we've set up within ClubExpress. So those defined roles are president, membership director, treasurer, webmaster, data protection officer. Now, the reason that we have those specific roles set for you is because they coincide with a lot of the system emails that we send out. So, for example, any email that gets sent that talks about a fee or a payment, that treasurer's information is automatically populated into that field. And the same goes with any time an email is sent out where the membership director's contact information is going to be inserted in that email. For example, when a new member signs up, when those renewal notices get sent out, our system now knows whose information to insert in that email. It's the same information that our system uses to determine who gets a notification when someone signs up. So making sure that you tell our system who gets this information, who's responsible for this, that's one of the first steps that a lot of people tend to miss when they're signing up. A couple of things that tend to come up quite a bit, some more than others, things that you don't necessarily know are available to you. So, for example, one of the things that you can collect from your members is gender. And you have the option as an organization to ask for either male, female, or non-binary. Now, non-binary isn't a gender option that is available right off the bat. All you have to do is give support a call and ask them to turn that on for your website. And you can then offer your members the option to not disclose their gender or to select non-binary. So that's an option that a lot of people don't know exists. Another question that I get sometimes is for organizations who are still collecting paper applications. What do you do with those? You probably have a lot of paper applications, maybe just sitting in a filing cabinet that you have been keeping for quite some time. Maybe for years past, you didn't have the ability to have members sign up online. You have a lot of those applications sitting around. Maybe you still allow your members to sign up with a paper application and then add them into your website. So let's talk about how you might go through that. If we go back into the control panel, in the People Manager, one of the options that you have on the right-hand side is to add a member. Now, as an administrator, you have the option to go through a different type of membership sign-up wizard than a user would. So you might have the user going through several pages of the membership sign-up wizard, including maybe adding a copy of their license, maybe a pilot's license as an attachment, maybe adding a copy of a certificate as an attachment. But maybe as an administrator, if you're going in and adding a member, maybe all you want to be bothered with is entering in some contact information and entering in maybe a couple of questions and then moving on. So if you add a member and go through the sign up wizard, you're answering some of the same questions again. The new member that you've signed up, as long as you enter in their email address, gets a notification that they've been signed up for your organization. Couple of things there. If they sent you maybe a check with their paper application, you can apply the payment right then and there, and they become an active member pretty instantly as soon as you hit that button. If you don't enter in payment, they, of course, get an email letting them know that they owe your organization money, and they go ahead and sign in with their username and a temporary password that's given to them. They sign in, they create a new password, and they apply that payment. So really, the process is relatively simple. And then, of course, what do you do with those paper applications? Well, you can do a couple of things. You can, of course, keep them, as is your prerogative. But if you're trying to transition to fully using ClubExpress to its full extent, really, why not consider throwing those applications in your document library? Your document library is located in the website tab. It's one of the modules that comes with your site. It is not an extra cost feature, and you have virtually unlimited storage within the document library. And if you've ever seen any of our tutorials or webinars that we've done on the document library, you know that you can set restrictions on folders and on individual documents to where only administrators can see them, or only members of a specific committee can see them. You could even make the folders completely invisible to the front end of your website and only make them visible on the back end. In that way, you're sort of treating the document library like your own personal ClubExpress, Google Drive, or Dropbox, where you're able to put documents in there. Administrators can see them. It's like a shared document repository for your organization specifically. So you can store all of those old paper applications that you might have sitting around. You can store all of those new applications that members might be sending in still. You don't have to keep logging yourself down with paper copies. You can throw them all within your document library. So let's talk about a couple of other things. How are your member types connected to other modules? Well, that's a complicated question. Member types are connected to other modules in a couple of ways because there are some modules that allow you to make distinctions based on member type. For example, forums is one of the biggest ways that member types come into play. When you set up forums, or maybe when your communications director sets up forums within your website under the communication tab, and if we take a look at a couple of the forums that we've set up already, you can actually create a forum based on member type. So as a membership director, think about not just the types of memberships that you want to offer, but if those membership types have any implication on how those people might be interacting with one another. So for example, we saw that we had an honorary member type. Maybe that's a forum that someone might want to set up. Or if you have a member type that is just for local businesses, maybe your communications director might want to set up a forum that is just for local business owners. And they can use the member type that you've set up as the basis for membership of that forum. To put it lightly, you have a lot of power as a membership director to sort of dictate some of the things that happen in a couple of the different modules on your website. In another instance, emailings are another way that member types might come into play, and not just member types, but any of the data that you collect from your members. So one of the things that if you've worked with our emailing module in the past, you know that one of the biggest sells, at least that I think is a huge sell, is the distribution lists that we offer. We offer dozens of different pre-created distribution lists that go through the data that's on your website and pull it to create those lists of people. This could mean that you're creating a distribution list based on an additional member data question that you've asked your member. You could be basing your distribution list on the location of your member. You could be basing it on a member type. Any data that you might be collecting as a membership director could be so valuable to other officers or other roles within your organization. It could be really valuable to your event coordinator, really valuable to your communications director, really valuable to even your treasurer. So thinking about not just what it means to be a member, but what it means to be a specific type of member, and how you want those members to be able to interact with each other, to interact with other administrators within your organization, things like that. So again, this is a big picture overview of how your actions as membership director actually affect other areas of your website. It's not the worst thing that you can do to get hyper-focused on your job, but it's also really beneficial to understand how things that you do in your own role can affect other modules and other roles within your organization. Everything is connected. And so we talked a little bit about access as a member, what it means to be a member. Many of the modules that you have can be set up to only be available to members, and even specific items within each module can only be available to members. Most of our modules are set up that way. For example, events. You can close off an event so that it's only available to members. You can make it to where a non-member doesn't even see the event on the calendar. Only signed in members can see the event. Or maybe you want non-members to be able to see the event, maybe tease them a little bit with how great the event's going to be, but only allow members to register. So again, being an active member means that there's a limit to how much they can do as a non-member. And it's the same with maybe making a donation. So one of the things that we added several months ago was the ability to make recurring donations as opposed to a single donation. But because of the way your member and non-member benefits are separated, only members can make recurring donations. Because if you'll recall, members are the only ones who can save a credit card to their profile. So again, being a member gives you access to certain items that a non-member simply does not have access to. So thinking about that distinction is important as well. There are a lot of functions on your site that could limit the access that someone has. Thinking about how you want people to join your organization and why you want them to join, making sure that if they are joining, and especially if they're paying to join your organization, that they actually see those benefits, that they see that there are things that they can do now as a member as opposed to as a non-member. Alan, how are we doing on questions?
Oh, we have lots of questions.
Do we? I'm excited. Hit me.
All right. So one question that just came in said, did I just hear that non-members cannot do recurring donations? Is that correct?
Yes. So the reason for that is that in order to have a recurring donation occur, we on the ClubExpress side charge that particular member on whatever basis they agree to be charged on it, whether that's monthly or quarterly or yearly. The way we do that is we charge the credit card that is saved to that member's account. Because non-members do not have a profile, they don't have a way to save a credit card to anywhere really on your website. So non-members cannot complete a recurring donation.
There is one other thing that even for members, if you want to enable recurring donations, you have to call ClubExpress and they have to enable it.
Yes.
It's not something that you turn on. All right, let's jump into these questions, some of which I've answered in the chat, but there's a whole bunch of them that I think we can go through fairly quickly, but some involve a little more detailed conversation.
Okay.
So the first question is, how do you handle membership applications from folks who don't use computers? Ooh. So in the People Manager, say you had a paper membership form, the administrator or coordinator can simply add a member. You see there's an add a member button there, and then you would go through almost the same wizard that they would go through, and you would fill out all their information for them. And if they sent you in a check, then you could go in and actually, since you're an administrator, you wouldn't just see, credit card or PayPal or send in a check. You would see in the payment, record a check payment or received cash, things like that, or we need to comp them or forgive them. So as an administrator, you could do all of those things for them. There's a question here that says, when we add a new member, how long is it before they can register for events? Is this minutes, hours, or something? And I don't know the answer to that. There's probably a little bit of a lag, much the same as when you create a forum. It takes a little while before the forum gets populated, but I don't know. If you find that it's a significant lag, and I'll say this over and over again, give our customer success, the support people, a call, and they'll check to see if everything is behaving itself. There's a question here that says, once we go live, will we have to include bulk load under member status? And the answer is bulk load is when you're getting a club up and running, but you haven't actually activated people yet. It's a chance for you to go and review the things that you have sent to ClubExpress through a spreadsheet to say, here are all my members. Once you go live, they are converted to active, and there won't be any other bulk loaded unless you uploaded a second group. So there's a question here that says, does the member chair get an email notice that a prospective or pending member has signed up? Well, in the people options, there is a field called Notify Membership Director when a new member signs up or an existing member renews. So it could be no, don't notify anybody, or just for new members, or anytime somebody registers for the first time or renews. Now, this also gets into some of the other questions that came down a little bit later, is at this point, this notification happens as soon as they submit. And it doesn't care really if it's a member that needs approval or not, or if they have paid or not, because it hasn't even gotten to that point yet. Somebody has simply submitted an application. Now, that application may be automatically approved 5 seconds later, but this goes out when they hit submit. So the thing is that there's no way at that point to know whether or not it's a pending member or a prospective member or just went active. It's simply saying somebody signed up. Here's one that says, does a dropped member, when you drop a member, do they receive an email? And I think the answer is no.
No, they do not.
Right. This is not so much a member management thing, but says under the member menu, is it possible to put recordings from a training for people to go back and review? And my suggestion there was you might want to make a custom page with resources that you find helpful for your members, help screens, tutorials, and things like that, and put that on your menu so they can go there for the stuff that you find particularly useful. So here's a question that is a change from the way it behaved before version 10. It says, more specifically, would I get a notice that says that this member requires approval, or do I have to search for that member in the People Manager to figure that out? And right now, the answer is the notification email is the same for those who need approval and those who don't, or those who paid and those who don't. And so I go to the People Manager, and the community I manage requires it. So I just search for prospective and then just take care of the prospective members. There is no way at the moment of sort of saving that. And by the way, there's kind of two ways to do this. If you just reset for a moment, reset the button here, that sets it back to active and expired. Two ways. If you pull down the menu, in order to get rid of the active and expired and do prospective, there's two ways to do it. You can either uncheck active, uncheck expired, and check prospective, or you can click check all again, and then click prospective. I vary the way I do that on the clubs that I manage. Let's see. This says, is there a way to export the additional members in a more usable format? The Excel CSV export isn't very usable. I would probably suggest some of the reports. You can do an export on a report, but really, when you come right down to it, the CSVs and the data exports are the most flexible, and you can do it in so many different ways. So you could do this as a CSV or HTML or something like that and run the report, and it'll give you all the additional member data. But I'm not sure if you're talking about additional member data or additional members on a membership. So I'm not quite sure. Here's one I didn't know the answer to. If you do a specific date renewal, does the system prorate dues if someone joins out of cycle? Samantha, do you know the answer to that?
The system does not prorate dues. A way that you could potentially get around that, a couple of organizations have done it. Let's say your membership cycle starts January 1st and they join in March. You could still charge them the full amount, but you could issue them a credit for whatever amount, if they join in March and your membership cost is $120, so $10 a month. If they join in March, you would want to credit them for $20 after they've paid for that full year. You could issue a standalone charge or credit using the charge credit button within the People Manager. And you could credit that particular member, let's say credit type, maybe membership fee discount. And I could say that the discount is $20, joined 2 months into the cycle. And a financial account, let's say I would maybe call this master membership dues. If you have questions about financial accounts and what they mean, we have a full webinar that discusses it. And I would go ahead and save my changes. And now Sally has that credit that's sitting on her account that she can use to register for an event in the future. She can use it next time she renews. You also, of course, have the option to just send that particular member a check.
All right, here's another question. I like this one. It says, what are the gender options? Well, the default is male, female or male. In fact, if you jump up to Martin Smith and go into contact info, you'll see at the top is female, male, but if you call ClubExpress, you can also enable non-binary other. And I've done that for the clubs that I manage. So it says, I saw an option related to notifications for email only. Is there a way to automatically send a notification to people without email? And this is probably in the setup wizard where you decide when you're going to send out notifications. Could you just go back to that for a moment?
Yes. I believe you're talking about the renewal settings.
Yeah, renewal settings. Okay. But there's an interesting caveat here where it says emails. You can do emails or regular mail if no email is specified. Now, well, the way it's worked for years is if no email was specified, the folks in the ClubExpress office would actually physically stuff envelopes and send them out to your members. But I don't know that that's actually happening right now, or if that has been suspended, because all the people at Club Express are working from home. We don't have people in the office because the office isn't a safe space at the moment. So, Samantha, do you know if that particular feature has been temporarily suspended?
I don't know if it's currently suspended. I know that we did for a little bit. I'm sorry, I don't know if it's still suspended or not.
Right. And because there are people that, particularly in some of the aging in place communities, where the members simply do not have email. And the question is, well, what do you do for those people? So you could call the Club Express office it gets routed to our people who are working from home and ask if that's still in place. But generally, this is the way it would be done, is to say, okay, email only, or if they don't have an email, then send snail mail. All right. It says the email notice of a new member sign up goes to membership director, but doesn't indicate if a member has paid dues. It only indicates the amount of the dues. So can it also indicate if the dues have been paid or if a check is being sent out? And the answer probably is no, because it really gets sent out as soon as they submit. It doesn't know if it needs to be paid, if they paid, if they're going to pay. It's simply saying someone has just signed up. And so it happens before any of those other decisions are made, regardless of member type. So it's unlikely that that is going to change. Let's see. There's a wish list here. I wish we could create a map of member addresses. And in the standard member directory, I happen to agree with this. In the standard member directory, this gives a map of the people that are in the results for this page and this page only. So I think it gets 17 results or something like that. So if you were to say, I'm really interested in the people in California or near a particular zip code, if you filter the list, it will give you a map of the people that are in that result. But the problem is that if you've got an organization that has thousands of members or is worldwide, I mean, I've got in one of the organizations that I manage, we've got people in Australia and people in Europe. It becomes a very, very tiny, a worldwide map if you did everybody. But the question is, how long would it take to generate the map? Because this map is being generated in real time. This map is being generated for the result list here. If there were thousands of points on the map, that might just take way too long to try to generate in real time. And here we're trying to create a real-time map rather than one that was aggregated overnight or something like that. Let's see. One question here says, our biggest challenge has been during the renewal process for couples with only one email address. It says, in hindsight, maybe we should have had solo memberships for all. Are there any thoughts? So if the owner of the account, the primary in the account, and the secondary or tertiaries all have the same email address, in effect, the secondary is seeing the renewal notice and things like that when they can't manage it.
There was one question that just came in. Is there an option to be included or not in the membership directory? That's something that people tend to miss quite a bit. In the options for your standard member directory, at the very top, if you're visiting the directory from the back end, is do you want to allow your members to limit the information that's actually shown in the member directory and also give them the option to opt out? So if you want to, for lack of a better word, force your members to be shown in the membership directory, you would just simply uncheck that option. If you want to allow your members to have a little more control over what information is shown, you would check that. And then you decide by default, if they don't touch it, if your members don't ever touch what information they want shown, what's the default? So maybe as a default, you show all of their information, but not their email address. And then as a member, I can go into my member profile, my directory listing. I can choose the types of information that I want to have shown on my directory listing. So at the very top here, Martin has elected to show all information, but maybe he just wants to show his name, city, and state only. He doesn't want to show any other information. And that's how you allow your members to opt out of that.
That's great because that was one of the one of the other outstanding questions. It says, "How do I create an invoice for dues if a member requests it and their membership is still active? Say if an expired member's invoice shows the wrong name of an officer, can that be changed?" This is specifically for people that don't have a computer and say, "Okay, we're going to go to a particular person, and this is a new feature here: member status, new payment pending." You can search for them and you can print an invoice here, or you can go to their profile and go look at the transactions that are pending and such, and print not necessarily an invoice, but print, we'll call it a receipt or details, and you could print this whole thing and send it to them. All right. If you set an approved prospective member, change it from pending to active immediately, will they still get a dues outstanding email? And the answer is yes, because the dues outstanding email goes as soon as they're approved. And the email typically says, if there's money that is owed, you can click sign up, but you can edit those emails. So if you go into Control Panel Communications, down at the bottom, you go to System Emails. Down here, you can, I think it's under New Member Sign Up or something like that, or New Prospective Member Confirmation, or New Member Confirmation, all of those. You can go and actually edit this. And so, for example, if you don't charge any dues at all, then you can just get rid of anything about dues. You can edit this to whatever is relevant to your organization. And if you have edited it, you'll see that there's a little green check mark next to the one that has been edited. If you click on the, and I don't want you to do it, but if you were to click on the trash can, that doesn't delete the email. That just deletes your edit and puts the default email back in. Those are the ones that I've got here. Samantha, you want to just take a look at some of the late ones?
Is there a way that the system automatically notifies the membership director when the treasurer receives the dues payment? Unfortunately, no, there isn't a way to notify the membership director when a payment has been made. We covered additional member data reports. So additional member data reports are just going to be in the control panel under the People tab in membership info. And one of the last report options is additional member data. So I guess there was a question about what information is included in that report and whether or not it was entirely useful. If you have suggestions of, types of things that you'd like to see in reports, you can feel free to send them to our support team. You could also consider signing up for a free trial of our ad hoc reporting feature, which is a lot more robust and allows you to create fully customized reports. It's a no obligation free trial, where at the end of the trial, you are not automatically charged. You simply just lose access to the module. But you can give that a shot and see if that works for you and your organization for even more than just additional member data, for really any type of reporting that you might want to do.
So there's a question here that says, I can't find out how you made that map in the standard directory. Is this something that has to be configured? I think that is something that is turned on.
It is in the options for the standard member directory. So if you're in the control panel and you find your standard member directory in the People tab and you click that edit icon, it's in the same space where you would decide whether or not you want your members to be able to limit the information in the directory. You determine whether or not you want to display the map and how you want your members to be able to search for other members.
One other thing that, in addition to reports and CSV exports and reports, why don't you just click on the data export options? Because data export is really where the power lies. So it's on the Club tab and you click on data export. There are a ton of data exports here. And then very often within some of these data exports, you've got some additional decisions to make or ways of filtering it. But things like a member's name, address, contact information, or active members as above, plus sponsor, birthday, address, anniversary, and other fields, you get a ton of information, and then you can slice and dice it pretty much any way you want. There is a question here. This is, Do you offer consulting services to help customers migrate from their legacy systems to your system? And I believe the answer is yes. It depends, obviously, on what kind of system you're migrating from. But if you give our office a call, they will be very happy to talk to you about what options are available for you. Samantha, do you have anything else that you wanted to cover before we wrap it up?
I do not. If you have any outstanding questions, of course, feel free to give our support team a call and they'll answer it for you.
Yeah, and just show them at the bottom of the page how to contact support.
Sure.
What people don't realize is that at the bottom of the page, there's Contact Us, which talks about contacting your organization. But at the bottom of that page is something that says website technical support. So not only can you as an administrator or coordinator contact ClubExpress, any of your members can contact ClubExpress if they don't understand something about credit card statement, or they can't figure out how to register for an event, or they can't figure out how to renew or whatever. By all means, call our customer success people. This is one of the things that separates ClubExpress from all the other association management solutions out there. This is rather unique. We have people that are very happy with our support and customer success people. These are people that not only know their stuff, but these are people you want to go have dinner with. They're just really nice people. Someone says, this has been really helpful. I have a few actions to take as a result of this, and we'll call customer support for a couple of them. For example, adding the non-binary gender type. Absolutely. They can just turn it on for you, and it's the right thing to do. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and we will see you in the next webinar.
Bye.
Bye.